Welcome back to 310 to Left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers, an F-Series, America's best-selling truck for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. He's former Red Sox pitcher and current NESN analyst Lenny DiNardo. I am, checks notes, Alex Spear of the Boston Globe, currently sitting in a hotel room in Atlanta for All-Star festivities. And Lenny, this is what a time to be alive. This is an unexpected turn of events for the Red Sox. I'm sure that you saw this 10-game winning streak coming.
Oh yeah, the preseason I had this team at 93 wins, right? And they got off to an extremely slow start. The sky was falling. Everybody saw it. And I tell you what, this is kind of what I wanted this team to be from game number one. It just didn't happen. And fortunately, I feel like it's not too late, going into the All-Star break with this 10-game stretch right here. Pretty incredible baseball. I mean, the way they're playing on all sides. And I said going into this 10 game stretch, I said they need to be 7-3. If they're 7-3, they're going to give themselves a shot. And they just completely over exceeded expectations from a lot of people going in. It's been a lot of fun to watch so far.
It is insane to think that they not only have some separation from the Rays, like they've vaulted themselves up to being the number 2 wild card seed in the American League, but they're right there with the Yankees at this point. And now all of a sudden the division conversation is kind of back in play. This is a pretty staggering turnaround. What do you let's start with the components of it. What do you view as being kind of the thing that's really propelled them forward?
Well, we always talk about how pitching is extremely important, starting pitching in particular. And for me, they're pounding the strike zone. They're getting ahead. They're getting strike one. They have an offensive approach when it comes to attacking hitters. I feel like the walk rate is down, the strike rate, specifically the first pitch strike rate, is up. We've seen what it's done for Aroldis Chapman this season. The biggest difference between Chapman isn't stuff; it's pounding the strike zone from strike one, and we've seen what it's done for him this season. I feel like, and that approach is helping the rest of the starting pitchers. Offensively, there's been a distinct approach getting away from putting the ball in the air. Whether they say it or not, what I'm seeing is they're not trying to drive the ball in the air, and they are still getting their home runs. And I feel like that's not a coincidence. If you listen to any big league player that had any sort of success, and I heard Frank Thomas talk about it the other day on social media, get away from trying to put the ball in the air, cut the ball in half, create backspin that way, and the ball will get out of the ballpark. But in the meantime, when you're not hitting it over the monster, you're going to be spraying balls toward the gaps, toward the big part of the field in center field. And that's what I've seen. I've seen a lot of gap shots. I've seen a lot of swings that have been cut down, and just not as many dip and drive swings trying to get underneath the baseball. They will come, but it's that approach that's going to allow them to get on base, move guys over, and eventually you see what Ceddanne Rafaela is doing. Eventually, get balls out of the ballpark.
Well, yeah. So you point out that the Red Sox offense is obviously like everything is going well when you have a 10-game winning streak. They lead the majors. They're averaging about 5.9 runs a game over the course of this stretch. They are, I believe, third in the majors in the ERA during this stretch. But as you point out, to me, like what Rafaela is doing is startling. He's in a run where over I think the last 8 games he has more homers, 5, than strikeouts, 4. That's like Barry Bonds stuff. And I realize that it's just in one very condensed stretch of the season. It's just one small window in time. Nonetheless, like what a transformative figure he's been. Are you seeing anything that when like there are some significant physical adjustments mechanically in terms of what he's doing this year as opposed to past years? What are you seeing? How is he getting to this power while not selling out, while not swinging and missing a ton?
Well, when he first burst on the scene, what the Red Sox were saying is, listen, he's going to be aggressive. He's going to swing outside the strike zone. We don't want him to lose that aggressiveness. We still want him to go after these baseballs. But he's got the A, B, and C swing. He's still aggressive, but he's making sure when the pitcher gives him something to do damage on, he's capitalizing. He's going right after it, and he's just not missing. And that's just, it's not normal. It's not normal to put that good of a swing on certain pitches that consistently in such a short time frame. And hitters get locked in, hitters get hot, hitters get cold. He just happened to get extremely hot in a key time where the Red Sox really needed him to go out there and drive the baseball. And his approach is aggressive. He's going to swing, but I feel like he is taking certain pitches outside the strike zone that are close, and that's making the pitchers come to him, and he's right there waiting to go put a charge on these baseballs.
Yeah, I think that you point out something that's been critical to his improvement, which is that he's been swinging at pitches that are outside the strike zone, but they've been close outside the strike zone. They haven't been, they haven't been the pitches that are a foot off the plate. And part of that, I think, deals with the mechanical adjustment that he's made, where instead of having his hands on top of his head pre-pitch, he's brought them down to a position where he's able to take a more direct path to the ball, but it's a shorter path to the ball. We're used to seeing Ceddanne Rafaela having this huge swing that looked, it's a kind of funny look, right? Because he's a smaller guy, but he had this giant swing where it looked like everything that he was doing, everything in his body was pouring into that effort at the plate. And now we're seeing something that's a bit more controlled, that's also affording him a little bit of extra time to think about what he's swinging at, to identify and recognize the pitches he's swinging at, and to be a little bit more accurate with the barrel to the ball. That's resulted in really a striking stretch.
Yeah, having your hands in a more neutral position, you want to be able to keep them back, but having them more in a neutral position versus really far high or really far low is going to allow him to get to certain pitches up and down in the strike zone. But it's all about keeping the hands back and letting the hips start. The hips tell the shoulders when to rotate. Same thing with pitching, right? So if your hips are rotating and your hands are still back here, locked in, ready to go, you're going to be able to get to the fastball, but at the same time, adjust to the breaking ball, because you have to keep them back just a little bit longer to adjust to that little wrinkle in that pitch. But again, having your hands super high and being able to get down to go to that baseball oftentimes gets you underneath. But when your hands are a little bit lower, a little bit more direct to the baseball, you can create a little bit more of a flatter plane to the baseball. And that's, again, that's a really good adjustment for him. Kudos to the Red Sox staff, whoever pointed that out and getting him in that position, whether it's Pete Fatsi or somebody else. But I tell you what, it's really paid off so far.
You already mentioned the fact that the Red Sox, we're seeing different approaches with the Red Sox. The in-season adjustments, the in-season reversal of performance by Rafaela, by Trevor Story, like these are startling turnabouts. Can you recall seeing a team that went from looking kind of so overmatched offensively, which is where they were on that West Coast trip, right? You think about the 3-6 West Coast trip right after the trade of Rafael Devers, and they won the first series in Seattle, but they were scratching and clawing for runs there, and then just didn't score over the course of the series losses against both the Giants and the Angels. Can you recall seeing an about face that looked like this, where a team looked like it had no shot at the plate, and then all of a sudden was performing as the best offense in baseball?
Alex, I really haven't. There's nothing that's popping into my mind saying, "Oh yeah, this reminds me of that team. They did that." I mean, no, I can't recall. But if you don't want to strike out, if you don't want to get to strike three, don't get to strike two. And that what that tells me is chase fastballs, chase pitches that you can do damage on earlier in counts. Don't get to that count where you have to go out there and expand outside the strike zone, because you don't want to leave it in the hands of the umpire. So having that offensive, that aggressive approach early on, when pitchers are probably more likely going to throw fastballs, trying to get ahead with their heat, because everybody throws hard these days. But hitters can hit fastballs, so why not get that pitch early in counts so you don't have to face a nasty breaking ball late? I think that's part of it as well. But yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't know. You probably know more than I do of a team back when that's done something similar to this. But it's just it's mind-boggling how the about face has really turned over in the past week or two.
So what does that mean moving forward? Like when you have a team that's shown the ability to be on opposite ends of the spectrum in a very short window of time, what are they?
Yeah. I mean, hopefully the approach is more sustainable than the lift and drive approach where you're going to see strikeouts. I feel like it is more sustainable, but the fear for me is what happened to this team the past 3 seasons, second half after the All-Star break, is they've kind of gotten tired. Things have slowed down. The momentum kind of shifted in the opposite direction of what we're seeing right now. So I'm hoping the approach stays. I'm hoping the pitchers come out ready to go. And I feel like there is enough momentum in this clubhouse and on this team where they can come out of this short break, maybe rejuvenated physically, but still keeping that mental mind frame where it's all hands on deck, go out there and continue to keep your foot on the pedal. I really hope that's the case, because it's been a really, really fun past couple 2 weeks after, like what you said. It was slow. There really wasn't anything going on. We felt like, all right, this is who they are. They're not going to be a playoff team again. But yeah, they've turned it around. And again, the offensive approach of driving the ball, making contact, and just trying to put the ball in play, because good things happen when you do that, is way more sustainable. And hopefully they continue that approach, and that'll help them get to where they need to be throughout the rest of the season.
And then the other thing that we talk about is the pitching side of things. Garrett Crochet has been fantastic from the jump, and I think that in some ways we fail to appreciate how hard that is, particularly for a guy in his first season in a new role, right? Like, this is like Garrett Crochet, projected all-star, projected ace of the staff, as opposed to Garrett Crochet, guy moving from the bullpen to the rotation, where there are zero expectations associated with what his performance should be. So he's coming into, he's traded, he's making the transition to a new city after spending his entire career somewhere else. He's in a new role, in a new level of responsibility, new contract, and nothing but excellence. Like, you were teammates with Curt Schilling in 2004 when he made that adaptation to Boston seem seamless. How impressive is it to see what Crochet has been able to do while checking off all of those firsts?
Yeah, when Curt Schilling came over in '04, he was the dude, so to speak. He knew that. Everybody knew that. And Garrett Crochet's kind of the same way. He knows he's the man. He knows he's the ace of the staff. There's no denying that. Everybody knows that he's the guy that takes the ball every 5 days and should be able to give his team a chance to win. He's embraced that role, and the stuff speaks for itself. Even on days where he doesn't have his A game, he goes out there and battles, gives the team 5, 6 innings. He's racking up the strikeouts. He pounds the strike zone. And again, when he doesn't have his best stuff, he moves on to another pitch to go ahead and get it done, whether it's the sweeper, the cutter, the fastball. Yeah, so it's about getting strike one for him, pounding the strike zone, and just letting his stuff eat, right? Because he knows that when he goes out there and throws his best stuff, he's better than 99% of the hitters out there. They're not going to be able to get it done when he commands his fastball inside and outside the strike zone, along with that cutter off of that. So again, he's been fun to watch. The caveman picked his games for a reason, because he's going to get so many this season, and there's not a lot of emotion there too. And I feel like that factors in when he's pitching a 10, 12 strikeout game. Can you really tell by the look on his face when he leaves the game? Not much, right? And when he strikes out 8 and he goes 5 or whatever, can you really tell that he had a poor outing to his standards? Not really, right? And I think that's key. I feel like that's really important for a guy like him, to not put too much emphasis on any given start, right? He walks off the field like, this is just what I'm supposed to do, right? And if I didn't have my best stuff today, probably going to have it next time. I love that mentality, and I feel like it serves him for sure every 5 days.
Well, that sense of equanimity, right? The level-headedness, like, I think was crystallized at the end of the complete game, where he admitted he didn't really know what he was supposed to do at that moment. Like, so he just kind of like goes and shakes Narvaez's hand and is like, yeah, okay. I guess I don't face any more batters. He looked like he was ready to.
Yeah, can we get another inning just for practice, just to kind of
Yeah.
so I can work out this third
Throw a
pitch or
couple more
whatever?
pitches in the bullpen. Yeah. So Crochet has been consistent. The thing that's really, I think, vaulted the team forward, because there have been some low scoring wins over the course of this stretch, has been the dramatic in season improvement of Giolito and Bayo. For both of those guys, I do think that their early struggles followed time on the injured list. And I think that we often underappreciate the fact that when a guy comes off the injured list, particularly at the start of the season, they're usually still building into their deliveries and into their stuff. So, do you believe that what you've seen, that this version of Giolito, the one who seems to have found an arm slot that works a little bit better for getting the four-seamer where it's supposed to go, which in turn allows the stuff that falls, whether it's the slider, whether it's the changeup, to get to better better separation vertically for him, which has allowed him to open up the plate and do some impressive things. This version of Bayo, who's now rediscovered his changeup atop this kind of more diverse mix that now features the four seam and the cutter atop the changeup and the sweeper. Do you think that these are versions of these two pitchers that are sustainable?
I do. And, start with Giolito. When he first started with the Red Sox this season, coming back, he was really a two-pitch pitcher. He was mixing in a third every now and then. He was mainly fastball up, changeup down. And at the big league level, if you're going to be a starter, you have to show a third pitch just for show, just to have something working glove side, because his changeup's kind of down and away, arm side. The fastball is going to be up. And you talked about the mechanical changes, raising his arm angle just a degree or two or three, whatever it is. Little adjustments like that can go a long way, and as far as getting behind and on top and through that four seamer, it's given it a little bit more just ride at the top of the strike zone. Just and that changeup coming out of that same tunnel makes it that much more effective. It's important to be able to get ahead with him. He's not overpowering, so if he can get ahead, if he can get to two strikes, that changeup can be a swing and miss pitch when it's down and away. And for him, on the opposite side of the coin, because we were just speaking about Crochet and how he's even keeled. Have you seen a guy smile so much on the field, mid at bat, mid inning, walking off the field? He's very kind of giggly out there, and I like that for him. Everybody's different, but he's out there. He'll throw a nasty pitch, and he walks back to the mound. He's got this big grin from ear to ear. So that tells me that he's really confident out there. Good, bad, whatever. He feels like he's able to get out of jams. When he does, he's happy about it on the mound. And that's big for him, being able to show that emotion. Like I said, everybody's different. Some guys need to be focused and have kind of a neutral persona on the mound. He's one of those guys that's kind of giggly and whatever. If it works for him, it works for him. Bayo, it's confidence. I feel like it's pure confidence for him. Like you said, the changeup is back in the mix. He's throwing it more consistent in the spots and commanding it better. And the first inning has been better for him too. This first inning has just been kind of iffy throughout his career, and the early parts of this season he just wasn't able to break through and create a little bit of damage control when things went south. He's a different pitcher now. He's able to go out there and make certain pitches and certain counts to get the ground ball, and when he's at his best, that's what he does. He pitches the contact, he gets the ball to the defense, they take care of it, and he's rocking and firing, trying to get the offense on the bench. And a quick tempo mix for him is key. So yeah, both those guys very confident right now, helping the team. Bayo was a guy that I didn't want to say I was giving up on, but the stuff has been so good since he came on the scene, and just the stats and the outings just did not add up. Just didn't add up, and you're hoping that he would turn a corner. I feel like he finally did. Last season, second half, he was a lot better too than the first half. He's probably the only starting pitcher I want to say that really was better in the second half. But this season he's been fun to watch because the confidence is starting to add up to the stuff. The numbers on the back of his baseball card are starting to add up to the expectations and what we've seen early on.
Well, great to hear your thoughts on this. There's a lot to digest with this team. So in order to further do so, we now have Tom Caron talking to Alex Cora. So here he is, TC with AC on 310 to Left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers.
310 to Left is presented by your New England Ford dealers, who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse, a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 310 to Left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. AC, you play in a very unique stadium, right?
Yeah.
From the dimensions and the angles and the wall and all that. And you've always said this is a team that should and has to have a good record at home. You haven't in years. You do again this year. What's been the difference?
Right-handed power. I can say that. I don't know. We've been running the bases well. We haven't played great defense here, but I think we're using our athleticism to our advantage in this stadium. And we signed Alex for a reason. We thought KC was going to be the answer at second base, kind of like right-handed pull power. It didn't happen, but I don't know. It's something that we've been trying to figure out the last few years, but there's something we talk as a group. Like, for us to make it to the playoffs, you have to dominate at home, and the guys are having a good time here, I think, from the get-go, to be honest with you. And I'm not trying to, give too much credit to the fans, but they showed up early this year.
Yeah.
They showed up. And with everything that has happened, Roman comes in, and it was electric here. Marcelo comes in. It's feeling different, There's a few things we still need to do better for them to get into the game and all that stuff, but we'll take care of that.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because it feels like it's turned lately, but to your point, opening day was electric.
Mm-hmm.
The Yankee series was electric.
Yeah.
This week has been electric,
yes.
right? So it does feel like everything you've talked about, what this place feels like in September when it matters, in October when you're in the playoffs, it's right there for you guys, right? Like,
yes.
You keep this going, this is just going to continue to grow, right?
Yeah. I mean, I always said that when you come out of the dugout, there's a reminder of the season right there. It's right in front of us. And, if you take 2 steps, and you see Boston, you're having a great season. If you take 4 or 5 and then you see it, you're like, oh, gosh, this is tough. But that's a reminder. And, this place can be comfortable to the opposition if we don't get it going, and very uncomfortable if we're playing well. And talking to one of the coaches the other day from the Rockies, the third base coach, a good friend of mine, Andy Gonzalez, he's like, man, it's loud. Like sometimes we take it for granted. In the dugout, it doesn't feel that way. But on the field, it's very loud, and I think the fans are doing an outstanding job. I
think you also want the young players to grow into this environment, right?
Yeah.
To be a good environment. Last night, you had an RBI from a 24-year-old, actually 2 from a 24-year-old, 1 from a 21-year-old, 1 from a 22-year-old. Yeah. That's pretty good when the kids step up like that.
Yeah. My seat over there, and before the first pitch, I look around like rookie, trying to establish himself, veteran, proving people wrong, but they're very talented. And like you said, it's good for them to understand what this means. And I've been around this organization for a while, and when Marcelo got called up for the second game of that doubleheader, and when he went to stretch, he got a standing ovation. And I'm like, I haven't seen that in a while, and then when Roman came in, you just felt the buzz. So, that made me feel that the people are connected. They know who we are, who we have, and what's coming. And so far, it's been okay.
And Rafaela, to that group, you're seeing him now, the complete player, right?
Yes. We got him here sort of in 23. He wasn't ready, but I think it was a great learning experience for him. Last year, he had a really good season, playing half the games in center field, half the games at shortstop, a little bit at second base. But this year, he's probably the best defensive center fielder in the big leagues, and offensively, the last month and a half, he's been amazing.
Now you add Bregman to that mix again. What does he mean to those young guys?
He means a lot. He's been getting a lot of coverage about the communication and helping guys in the dugout. They're gonna miss that because now he's locked in to his craft, But it's just a leader, something that we needed as a group. We had JD in 18. He changed kind of like everything offensively. Turner, when he came in, he helped out. But we haven't had that guy in a while that plays every day. He plays defense. He's running the bases well. He hits. And vocal, he's not afraid to let the guys know what we need to do. For example, we redid our video room. We put more computers and we put a couch in there for guys to feel comfortable in. And in the meeting, he's like, if we don't see you there at least for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you're not into this. We're in the winning business and we need you there. And now when I walked in at noon, I see him, of course. He's the first one, but then you see Narvi and you see Ceddanne, and they're here early, often, and they stay here late. So it's been great.
There's been a lot of talk. I don't know if it's a straight-out change in approach, but you've shifted some things in the room. You're having more one-on-one meetings instead of group meetings, and we're seeing it. Strikeouts are down, a more line drive approach, guys putting the ball in play, better approach with 2 strikes. What's the last 3-4 weeks? What has happened that finally sort of snapped into place and it's coming together?
I think personnel has changed. The big guy, he hit. He's a great hitter. Rafi's a great hitter, but he swung and missed too. Now we're hitting Roman in the top of the lineup. He makes more contact. He uses the whole field. Marcelo, he makes contact. And I think it's personal base, and obviously now we're going to get Alex. That's going to help us out. But also the preparation, which fastball you don't cover, and now you have to cover it. Like this is, Rasmussen tonight. He has a cutter, a sinker, and a four-seamer. Well, you know what, Alex? You're going to get a four-seamer because you're not hitting that one. So during the day, that's what you're training for. Try to cover that pitch because you're going to cover the rest, and this is not a secret, I think everybody is being trained to do this, but I think our guys now, kind of like the one-on-one, especially how young we are, has worked, and hopefully it continues.
The Meyer at-bat last night, right? You said maybe his best at-bat of the year, but this is a guy who sat 4 straight games, right?
Yep.
Because of the way the rotation was working. What's impressed you most about what he's been able to do to continue growing, even if he's not in the lineup every day?
Yeah, he's locked in. The veterans have helped too, because you can get frustrated. You're the number 4 prospect in the game or whatever he is, and you're supposed to play. But here you're not playing, right? And they've been talking to him, just stay ready. The games that he didn't start, he got 2 at-bats against lefties in Washington. Then the other day he didn't start, he got 2 at-bats, So they understand that because you don't start, it doesn't mean you're not going to play. And we got 13 capable guys that can contribute any given night. And yesterday was a perfect example of him understanding the game. The first at-bat, he got a cutter, he swung, hit a ground ball to first. And then in that at-bat, he was patient. He shoot the ball over the shortstop and did an outstanding job with that pitch. And he's going to keep getting better. He's going to play second tonight, as you know, and we're going to give him at-bats. We're going to keep the rotation. We're going to keep guys fresh. And at the same time, that dugout, is you can learn so much just watching the game, just sitting there and watching the game, that we're going to try to accomplish that too.
Primarily second base when Bregman's in the lineup?
Yeah, when Alex is in the lineup, he'll play second. As you guys know, Alex is not going to play every game, especially I think the first 3 series, he'll play 2 out of 3. And then if he's a righty on the mound, then Marcelo will play the third.
It was easy to get Gonzalez in against lefties. Is it getting tough to keep him out of the lineup any night?
Not today. After the game yesterday, I went to the training room. He was in the massage table. I said, I got you, kid. Don't worry about it. But you got to be careful with that, because that's something throughout his career he suffered from that, right, injury. So keep him fresh, having those weapons on the bench, understanding that there's going to be a lefty now, probably most of the time, and a real good one, either Massa or Roman or Jaron or Willie. They're going to be there, and it's a complete roster, and we can do a lot of good things with them.
Dobbins tonight, what's impressed you most?
I think Sunday Night Baseball, first and second, 1 out, I think it was. His first big league outing, we put a pick play at second, and he executed. I was like, he gets it. Fitzy did the same thing last year. And I read a quote yesterday or this morning, him talking about player development and winning at the big leagues. And that's something that, honestly, TC, the last week, listening to these guys, they're not in the development business. They're in the winning business. Marcelo said it yesterday. Roman, he talked about expected numbers and producing. Like, you better produce, if not, you're going to go to Worcester. And it's great. And the clubhouse has been amazing. And we have a great group of young guys that are going to contribute not only this year but in the future.
Rafaela last night in the walk-off says, "I just want to win, man."
I just want to win. I get upset. He said we had a meeting the other day. He said, when you guys see me upset, it's not because I'm 0 for 4. It's because we lose. We're losing games. I hate that. And I think a lot of people, that road trip, it was an okay one. I think we learned a lot from the whole experience, right? We went to Seattle, we played well. We went to San Fran, it was a little bit uncomfortable. We went to Anaheim, we lost 2 games that we should have won. That flight from Anaheim all the way here is a long one. There was a lot of talk, a lot of people that were upset about how we ended. We came here, we played okay against Toronto, and we took off, man. It's been fun.
So you saw it coming. I mean, everybody talking about, they're playing last-place teams. But I thought that Toronto series kind of showed that it was coming together.
Yeah, I mean, that Sunday game, we had traffic all over the place, and it didn't happen. And they're good. They're playing good baseball. But there were a lot of positives. We're learning. It's a new group. how we win games, what we're going to do, playing new positions, communication-wise in the defensively, all that stuff comes into play. It's such a young group and a new one that it takes time. But I think, now I feel like we're hitting our stride, and it's going to continue.
I want to ask you finally, Chapman going to the All-Star game. We've talked so much about what he's done to be able to be in that kind of shape at this age, to throw with that velocity. But when you talk about winning, like, to me, that the glare at the end of the game,
yeah,
like the stare down.
You see the stare down, and now they do it right in the outfield. It's, bro, like, I've been around some good ones as a player, as a coach, as a manager, and they're all good. Very different, as you know. Closers are different. But this guy, first of all, he enjoys the game. There's always a smile. From afar, when we were playing against him, I was like, man, this guy is not happy, but yeah, I mean, he's locked in, and he was very quiet, never say hi, whatever. The first time I say hi to Chappie was in the 2019 All-Star game. He was doing squats with, like, it seems like 1,000 pounds, I was like, oh my God, this guy's working out at the All-Star game, and that's how he works. But in the clubhouse, with the media, with everybody around, there's always a smile, and what he's done in the 8th and the 9th inning has been amazing, man. He's locked in.
I want to ask you real quick about that, the 8th inning the other day. No, I mean, there's some closers you got to go sort of lay it out. Listen, you can just go to him when you need him.
Yeah, just communication. If we're playing Baltimore, or we playing a team that Vladdy and Bo and George, they're coming up in the 8th inning. We talk about it before the game, while he's taking his nap. Holty will go over there and hey puppy, be ready in the 8th. He'll be ready in the 8th, man. This guy wants to win. He has 2 rings, but he wants the 3rd one, and he wants to do it here.
So, Lenny, we heard it from Alex Cora, using the All-Star break, going to Coldplay, chilling out. The 162-game schedule is unrelenting. There are no such thing as weekends for baseball players in season. What was the best thing you ever did during an All-Star break?
Nothing, basically. A lot of guys that they're not actually playing in the All-Star game, they lounge around and just kind of get out of that same routine that they do day in and day out for 162 games. Guys are routine oriented, baseball players especially. When they get to the ballpark at a certain time, they know exactly what kind of sandwich they're making. They know when they're going to sit on the couch with the remote. They know when they're going to be going over hitters or pitchers, whatever it is. Very routine and regimented day. So to be able to take a day or two to sit on the couch and just kind of do nothing is important, to mentally reset as well as physically. And fortunately or unfortunately, I was able to do that a lot throughout my career, rather than going to. I made a AAA All-Star game once, and I was too cool for school at the time, so I decided to, I'm going to take a break. I'm not going to do it. So part of me regrets that, because it's an honor. A-ball, AA, AAA, whatever. You threw well, they picked you, but I decided it wasn't for me. I needed that couch time.
Wow. Well, that's a commitment. I used to have like a T-shirt that I loved to wear when I was a kid that pronounced myself a couch potato. So I can admire the underpinnings of it. Someone who has not had a time to unplug and reset during the All-Star break, Craig Breslow, the Reds and the rest of the Red Sox front office, because as much as this is a time for the baseball world to kind of stop, save for the guys who are showing up in Atlanta and are going to be playing in the All-Star game and enjoying the festivities surrounding that, the Home Run Derby, the baseball front offices are going bananas over the course of Sunday and Monday, because it's the Major League Baseball draft, and that's something that is a year's worth of work that's funneled into this 2-day stretch, and the result is that the Red Sox front office is working very hard, and the Red Sox on day 1 of the draft, they're getting ready for day 2, but on day 1 they continued something they started last year. Last year they drafted 14 pitchers with their 20 picks. This year, first-round pick, Kyson Witherspoon out of the University of Oklahoma, or Oklahoma University. Sorry, don't want to offend anyone. He is, viewed as a mid-rotation or better potential arm. Then they drafted two more arms in the first 3 rounds of the draft. So we talked to Tom Karen and I talked to Craig Breslow about the Red Sox shift to a philosophy of drafting pitchers heavily, and what they've seen in terms of their ability starting last year to get pitchers into their system and have them develop. Here is Craig Breslow on 310 to Left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers.
310 to Left is presented by your New England Ford dealers, who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse. a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 310 to Left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. You go from the draft pretty much right to the trade deadline now, right? And that's the way it goes. Now, we talked about this last week that, this team was built with the expectation of making the playoffs, and you approach this deadline at this point. They haven't done anything to change that. They've been winning games. When you start to look ahead at that, is there any early feel for how this might play off? Will it be active? Are you getting calls compared to last year? Can you sort of compare even where you are right now to what kind of traffic there was a year ago?
Yeah, I think it's similarly paced where, I think early July teams start to make, very kind of cursory calls and just get a sense for where teams are starting to head, and then things quiet down a little bit around the draft as everyone gets really focused on adding new exciting talent to the organization, and then coming out of the draft it'll pick up in earnest and we'll get more serious engagement. We're kind of creating our own hurdles as an industry in that teams understand that you very rarely get trades executed until you get right up against the deadline, and you never get a team's best offer until right up against the deadline. And so as much as we try to be aggressive and push teams, it's just really difficult to overcome.
And yet, you've already made, I'm not sure if you remember this, you did make one trade earlier this summer, right? There was one, I think, in mid-June. And then you also have this other thing that's happening, which is that you're getting healthier. Mm-hmm. And so you've had a very crowded outfield, one where you've already been kind of trying to gerrymander playing time in order to, using the DH spot for your wealth of talented left-handed outfielders. You're going to be, Masa Yoshida will be part of that mix now. Does that put you in a position where you kind of have to think about, do we want to trade from this area of depth in order to address other areas of need? Could the return of Masa be a kind of precipitating element for thinking about trades a little bit earlier than you might?
Yeah, it's something we have to think about. I don't think you ever want to be in a position where you have to make a trade. And there's this very fine line between having the problem of an overcrowded roster and having enough depth to weather injuries and keep guys off their feet. And I think the flexibility of opening the DH spot gives the opportunity for Alex to kind of rotate through that position and make sure that guys are getting at bats. And it does mean that on any given night there could be a really good player who's not in the lineup. But as we've seen, the way that Alex manages is really aggressively. And just because you don't start the game doesn't mean that you don't find yourself in it at a critical moment. Now I think there potentially could be some opportunities to make what I think people would call just like baseball trades, right? Where you're using depth in one area to address a need in another, and I think we'll be very open-minded about those things, but I don't think we're in a position where we have to make a trade.
It is interesting, though. You've been pretty aggressive in terms of that approach, right? Like we've seen you, whether it's making the trade for Crochet, whether it was Nick York for Quinn Priester last year, whether it was Quinn Priester this year, viewing him as part of an area of depth. What is your view of trades as a roster building tool?
Yeah, I think it's a critical piece of roster building, and the more transactions that you make, the more you're going to get wrong, but hopefully the more you're going to get right. And I think you have to be willing to be bold and aggressive in trying to identify and solve for opportunities or deficiencies in your roster. Trading is one way to do that. Free agency, of course, is another. Developing your own players is a third. We want to be open to all of those paths.
We talked a lot last year about picking a lane, right? Mm-hmm. You're adding, you're subtracting. It seems like this might be a year where maybe you do both because of what you said before. There are areas of depth that maybe you could make a deal without necessarily, even the Devers deal, right? You talked about the Devers deal at the time. The goal was still to make the playoffs. That wasn't giving up on this year. Can you thread that needle? As you look at what you might want to do this year, is this a year that conceivably you could move guys but still add to what you think is a better second half roster?
Yeah, I think you try to work backwards from like what are you hoping to accomplish, right? And I've talked about wanting to build this dynamic, athletic roster that is really exciting to watch, that leverages team speed and kind of identifies where the game is going. We needed to improve our defense. We need to run the bases better. To answer that question, oftentimes you make a trade and you don't know if you were buying or selling until the end of the season, and you look back and you determine how the performance went. But I do think that there are opportunities where we would say, hey, I'm not sure this firmly fits in the buy bucket or the sell bucket, but we took an area where we felt like we had some depth and we used it to address an area, not just in 2025, but potentially beyond. That's an area of need.
Part of theoretically moving some depth is when you've got a guy like Roman Anthony who, you're playing every day, and now Yoshida comes back into the mix of the DH. It's tougher to find him playing time. It's a good problem to have, right? That means you have too many major league players at certain positions. But is it something, whether it's this year or beyond, that you'd like to clear up because you've got a young guy who probably needs to play?
Yeah, we've seen what Roman can do, from the moment he got here, and despite the fact that he wasn't banking a ton of hits, there was a quality and a calmness to the at bat that I think was really pleasing, and I think indicative of what was to come, and now what the actual results are starting to match what the quality of the at bats had predicted. But again, I don't think anybody in this position would stand here and say we have too many good players. That's not actually a problem, right? And unfortunately, injuries and slumps, those are all parts of a season, and so we want to make sure that we're in a position to weather those things because of the expectations we have for the second half. So I think the answer is maybe.
So you do. So we're going kind of through like at the general level, but you have Roman, you have Jarren Duran, who we've seen a year ago, the kind of impact ceiling that he can have. You have Wilyer Abreu, who's been tremendous for you at different points and coming off a cold rough season. Ceddanne is performing at an exceptional level. Rob Refsnyder has been really good, and then you have Massa, who's a very good major league hitter. Mm-hmm. How does that work for the number for those? That's 4 spot, right? Like you're kind of trying to squeeze them into 4 spots. How does that work without a trade?
Yeah, so I think the first thing we do is think about kind of who is our opponent, and are we facing a left-handed pitcher or a right-handed pitcher, and that in some ways kind of filters the roster a little bit, in that guys like Ref and Romy have been so good against left-handed pitching that we're going to need to find at-bats for those guys against left-handed pitching. And then we're you could think about this as 5 guys for 4 spots, 4 guys for 3 spots. But when you play that out, you can say like, hey, each guy can get 75%, 80% of the at-bats, and like that's a pretty full season. It might not be the most intuitive or the easiest, but again, somebody gets banged up and needs a few extra days. Somebody gets hot, and we want to ride that for a while. I think there are a number of ways that this can go, but we're going to kind of explore what opportunities exist out there, and if there's a chance to make this team better in the short term and the long term, then we have to be open-minded about it.
Alex Bregman coming back, an all-star this year. We've talked about this. I feel like we'll ask you weekly, have you worked on an extension yet with Alex Bregman? That'll be our weekly check-in.
Right.
It was when's Roman on.
Now we're
moving on.
We have to have. We'll get it sponsored. We'll do it every week.
Right.
But does that factor into the trade deadline, knowing or not knowing whether you've got him after this year, or is that something that just kind of takes its time? If there is a conversation, it'll happen when it happens.
Yeah, I think it's probably more the latter, just because anytime you put a deadline on something, you don't always get kind of the best outcomes, right? And our focus and Alex's focus has been on getting back on the field. Fortunately, it seems like that's a matter of days and not weeks and months. And we know the impact he can have on the field, and that in a lot of ways I think is going to inform how we approach the deadline, because of what he's capable of bringing and what he can do to our win-loss record. Beyond that, those conversations I think are probably best to keep between Alex and me, or Alex's agent and Scott and me. But we are really excited about getting him back on the field, and equally excited with what he's meant for some of the younger guys as they've come up and tried to settle in.
He informs some of what you're doing at the deadline. I have been curious whether or not you're trying to, this isn't just a moment where you're thinking purely about the roster and projected wins, right? Like there's a lot of thought being given to the culture that the young players are developing in, what you're trying to establish for them as the norms moving forward of what they should expect of being a part of the Boston Red Sox. You've been very clear, you've been pretty direct that, on the idea that you're looking to add to this team. Is it important for you to be kind of keeping the needle pointed in that direction of, we are the Boston Red Sox and we're trying to win, as the young players try to make sense of what it is to being Boston Red Sox?
Yeah, I think it's a great development environment for young players when they're experiencing winning, when they're playing meaningful games in September and beyond. And I think it's a lot easier to reinforce how important it is to be selfless, to be a great teammate, to make winning the priority when winning is, it's an expectation and it's a reasonable expectation. And I think, again, kind of most important is we need to create this identity that, when teams come to play the Red Sox, especially at Fenway Park, they're in for a battle. And that means, we need to be able to play great defense. We need to run the bases well. We need to pitch really well. And we need to have, really, really competitive at-bats. I think we've started to see that over the last week or so where the team is gaining an identity. They're coming together on the field and off the field. And I think that's really important for young guys to be exposed to. And then, kind of zooming out a little bit, the expectation for the Boston Red Sox should be we're adding at the deadline, we're competing for the division, we're making deep playoff runs. That's the standard that this ownership group has established. It's the one that the fans have come to expect, and it's the one that we have to honor.
You're also winning at home, which is something this team hasn't done in a few years. And AC has talked a lot about it's a unique ballpark, right? We began this talking about the Green Monster. This is a place where a team should have a home field advantage, and you're building that again this year. How much does that need to be part of the identity, that Fenway Park is a difficult place and that goes to the makeup of the crowd, right? Getting fans louder behind the team, not having as many visiting fans be able to buy tickets, right? It all factors in. But how important is that to what you want to accomplish here?
Very important. I remember coming here as a visiting player and thinking like, oh, we're going to have our work cut out for us because it's going to be a hostile environment and the fan base is like literally right on top of you and they're really, really informed and educated and they understand the game and they understand, all of the nuance. I think, the product on the field kind of sets the tone, and when the team is exciting and fun to watch and they're winning games, fans come out and support the team and create the environment where it's intimidating for visitors to come. And so we can do that in a lot of ways. I think an exciting brand of baseball is kind of number one on that list, but finding guys who fit the park, and we've talked a lot about Bregman, but even what we've seen lately from Ceddanne and his ability to hit the ball in the air and pull the ball. We saw it last night, right? And one swing can really change the direction or the trajectory of a game because of the monster and what hitting the ball to left here means.
Have you thought, how far have you gotten in terms of defining needs that you would be looking to address at the deadline?
Yeah, we think about those every minute of every day. And they're a little bit fluid because, Tristan gets hurt and you think, how do we fill our first base need? And, is it Rafi? And that didn't work out, of course. And then we say, okay, what about Toro? Let's bring him up. Is that a short-term kind of stopgap, or wow, we're getting pretty consistent production? And what does that mean for what the longer-term needs are? So I think we have to evaluate what our needs are at any given moment in time. We also have to kind of look to the future. And right now, I would say, hey, starting pitching is always a need. But with Lucas the way that he throwing the ball the way that he is, and with Bayo giving us competitive starts, and what we saw from Fitz last night, and Dobbins getting healthy, and Walker with a step in the right direction last time. There's always a need for consistent starting pitching. Maybe it's not quite as urgent as it seemed to be a few weeks ago, or first base you could kind of point out the same way. But I think we're going to be really open-minded. We'll continue to watch how the team plays over the next few weeks. We've got a gauntlet coming out of the All-Star break, and I think we're going to learn a lot about who we are.
You've got 3 All-Stars. They were all picked up in the offseason. Does the player acquisition group get to do a victory lap in Atlanta, or are you guys too busy with the draft?
No, I think it's a credit first to the players, right? Because every one of those guys was an All-Star in the past. For Garrett it was last year, but for Aroldis and Bregman it's been a little bit of time. But they had that potential in them, and then I think the staff deserves a ton of credit for being able to kind of get that out and enable these guys to be the best versions of themselves, or better versions of themselves. And then certainly everyone in the pro scouting group deserves quite a bit of credit for helping to identify these guys, to bring them in, and it's not just the Garretts and and Alex and Aroldis, but also guys like Abraham Toro and Romy Gonzalez that were kind of more under the radar acquisitions. So an organizational effort for sure, but one that starts with the players.
So there you have it. And that interview with Craig Breslow took place earlier last week. So before the Red Sox had gotten their winning streak up to 10 games, but they were before the Hunter Dobbins injury. You heard him talking about potential needs, always interested in starting pitching. Lenny, what do you want to see the Red Sox target at the deadline?
Yeah, you can never have enough pitching, right? We've all heard that before. It's cliche, but again, like you said, with Dobbins going down, you can never have enough arms in the rotation, and even bullpen arms. Honestly, you've got guys like Weiser and Bernardino, who at this point in the season have so many outings. Those guys are out there every day. So to have a fresh bullpen arm or two would be key as well in certain situations. When the starters are getting deep, the bullpen arms are going to be a little bit more fresh, but you can't rely on that, right? It's not going to happen throughout the season. It only takes a week for a couple starters to go 5 innings, 5 and dive, and then the bullpen starts to get taxed. So again, if they go out and if they get another arm, someone to fill in at the back of that rotation, and maybe a bullpen arm or two, I feel like that's going to help propel this team because once it gets down to it, all hands on deck, right? If a starter goes 3 innings, you throw another starter out there to finish the second 5 innings or whatever. So yeah, I feel like it's important to have as many arms as you possibly can out there.
Yeah, names like Joe Ryan of the Twins is coming to the surface as a potential candidate. You wonder if the Twins would also entertain offers for Pablo Lopez. The Rays, the Rays I've heard are willing to entertain offers for Taj Bradley. They're a team that needs offense. Would you trade with a division rival and a wild card rival in a need for need or surplus for surplus trade? That's an interesting one. There's some crazy permutations to contemplate over the next couple of weeks between now and the trade deadline. But for right now, we're going to let Lenny go on his All-Star break because that's what he wants to do. That's what he likes to do, and he has to go wash a fence. So, Lenny, it was great to see you. Thanks so much for joining. Tom, we also had Tom Caron, we had Craig Breslow, Alex Cora. A lot of good stuff on this episode of 310 to Left. Lenny, let's do it again sometime.
Hey, thanks, Alex, for having me. I appreciate you.